Thank you so much for this opportunity to stand and support a bill that has taken a long time to get to the floor of the United States Senate. And I remember back when members like Senator Mary Landrieu stood and sounded the alarm. He sounded the alarm even before we saw the problem coming. And as a result of that initial effort and as a result of the great effort of the gentleman who just left the floor, Senator Menendez, we now have a bill on the floor that we can truly say we're actually listening to the middle class. How many times do you think in this body we talk about the working folks who come to work every day doing everything that they can, put food on the table, and they just need us to not cause more problems for them? And we hear about the middle class, and last night during the State of the Union speech, again, more discussion about the need to pay attention to the financial struggles and the challenges of working families. Well, let me tell you, this is a bill that for so many working families in North Dakota and across the country can mean the difference between home ownership or no home ownership, mean the difference between actually having equity in their home or having a house that's underwater. And I'm not exaggerating. This is a critical part of the housing market. It has created uncertainty in the housing market while we're trying to achieve some success and some continuing momentum. Housing is 20% of what we do in this country in our economy, but yet this is throwing a monkey wrench into the housing market for so many families and for so many states. I want to not tell anything new here, maybe, but to kind of give a different perspective, because I think all too often people think flood insurance is about the coast, or it's about the Gulf, or it's about what's happening maybe along a major river, whether it's the Mississippi. But let me tell you, in my state, flooding is a reality for way too many people. And it is a problem that we have experienced during these wet cycles that has led to devastation, has led to loss of equity in folks' home, and it has led to uncertainty. And I want to talk a little bit about two places that you may not think, because you've all heard about the massive Grand Forks flood, and you, of course, watched television as we were looking at what could have potentially happened in our largest city, the city of Fargo, North Dakota. But what you may not know is that we have a city called Minot, North Dakota, who experienced a devastating flood, absolutely devastating flood, where a tremendous amount of affordable housing, that housing that was along the bodyway, thought they were protected from a 100-year flood. Many did not have flood insurance, and the 100-year flood came and devastated and wiped out literally hundreds and hundreds of good, hard-working families and retired folks. And they're looking to rebuild. But right now, the uncertainty of flood insurance and what's going to happen with the new flood maps has slowed that effort down. It has created uncertainty. I just had a meeting in the city of Minot where I talked to the mayor, talked to the city officials, and asked the questions about whether they were seeing this uncertainty, and they certainly are getting a lot of questions. And I would love to tell those hardworking North Dakotans that we actually in Washington, D.C. can hear what they're saying. I also want to talk about another place way off from Minot. It's on the Red River Valley. It's a place called Grafton, North Dakota, where a great North Dakota family, Allison and Kyle, purchased their home a year ago. At the time, the flood insurance rate on their home was $900 a year. They knew that when they bought the house. They said, okay, fine, we've got this extra expenditure in order to meet our mortgage requirements, and they built that into their budget. And this is coverage for $100,000. Seemed reasonable, seemed like they were paying their fair share. But when the policy recently came up after the changes in the Biggert Waters law, their flood insurance rate skyrocketed to $4,200 a year. $4,200 a year. That's a 375% increase. In an email to me, Allison expressed her desire to raise their children in Grafton, but unfortunately, they no longer can afford to live there with those rates. Because, see, in Grafton, we don't have flood protection. And as a result, the entire community is probably in the 100-year floodplain. You're going to buy a house, you're going to get a mortgage, you're going to be required to get flood insurance. So not only is Allison, devastated by this news. The whole community of Grafton is now struggling with this increase in flood insurance. In the community of Valley City, a home has flood insurance bill that just went from $700 to more than $10,000 a year. Think about that. A lot of people who hear that amount would say, is that your mortgage payment? No, they say it's flood insurance, and get this, that flood insurance is for $60,000 worth of coverage. You know, we have a opportunity here to, I think, act as a body that actually listens to the challenges of the American people and actually reforms and looks back when we make decisions like Biggert Waters and as Senator Menendez has so often said, the concerns about affordability were raised at the time. They assumed those would be taken into consideration as they move forward with the rate reductions, and as a result, did not happen, and these rates went up. But we also have a unique issue in North Dakota. It's called the basement exemption. You know, when you think about at what level your house is protected to, you think about your foundation, you know, to that level where your yard basically meets your foundation. Because we waterproofed our basements along the Red River Valley and a lot of our communities, we were given an exemption. Lots of money went into waterproofing and making those basements floodproof. Now you might ask, why do you need a basement? Just put it on slab. North Dakota, unbeknownst to a lot of people, suffers from tornadoes. In fact, Fargo was devastated in the 50s by a tornado, and so people take very seriously that emergency shelter that's provided in basements, and frequently those basements get rehabbed, and as a result, you know, were used as flood control back when those homes were built. But now we have a basement exemption. People have made the investment. FEMA has, in fact, suggested that the basement exemptions will no longer be valid for all of those communities that have relied on that to provide affordable housing in their communities. And so this bill retains and says clearly that the basement exemption, after people made investments and reliance on the government, on the reliance on the government's word, that we will, in fact, have protection. Without this provision, without the basement exemption, flood insurance rates in these areas that rely on basements could go up again $10,000 a year. The Homeowners Flood Insurance Affordability Act provides a balanced, targeted approach. This bill gives FEMA the authority needed to implement reforms included in the Biggert Waters in a thoughtful way to improve the program's solvency and phase out certain subsidies without pricing people out of their homes and out of the program. It delays the premium increases until FEMA completes that all-important affordability study required under Biggert Waters and proposes regulations to implement that allow time for Congress to review. There have been some positive steps since many of my colleagues have come to the floor, including me, to sound the alarm so many months ago. But we need still to pass this bill. And so I think the time is now. And what better way for us to respond to the call of looking at and improving the condition of the middle class than to say we heard, we listened, we understood the challenges, and today we acted. We heard that you want to own your home. And we heard that the federal government ought not get in the way of you owning your home. And so I would encourage all of my colleagues to send a message. Send a message that we are putting our votes where our mouths are, that we are, in fact, today voting to improve the condition of very many working class and middle class American citizens who have had great uncertainty created as a result of flood insurance. Mr. Chairman, I yield the floor and note the absence of a quorum.